Hello, I'm Fiona Maguire from RealEnergyForAll.com. In this video webinar, I'm going to talk to you about how do you relieve your suffering, how do you clear it, how do you get rid of pain, how do you put an end to suffering. Let me ask you, do you have something that bothers you? Do you have something that you repeat again and again and again and you're like, I wish I didn't do that, but somehow you can't seem to be able to stop? Maybe it's repetitive pattern, like getting the same partner again and again. Maybe it's like smoking or drinking. Whatever it is, whatever's causing you suffering in your life, I'm going to teach you how to clear that. So before I do that, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a degree in psychology and I worked as an assistant psychologist in the NHS. What I realised while working as an assistant psychologist is that the theory of psychology didn't really work. What really worked was just being with the children in the unit, being with them, listening to them, making a deep connection with them, accepting them. And yet the psychology didn't work as quickly as it was meant to. I made breakthroughs and I made beautiful connections, which I'm sure helped them, but it didn't really create the change as quickly as I wanted to. And sometimes it didn't create the change at all. And it wasn't just my work, it was everybody's work that I saw in the hospital. We'd done a lot of good, but I knew there had to be something else. I knew there had to be another way. So that's what I'm going to share with you today in this video, this webinar. And the other thing about working in the hospital and knowing that there's another way is it got so difficult that I burnt out. I just cared too much. I just wanted to make a change. So that's when I became a clinical massage therapist. But what was really interesting about that was people were still asking me to counsel them. They were still asking me to give them psychology, because people with physical problems were also having mental and emotional problems. They were very linked. And that's also what I noticed in the hospital. The children often had a lot of physical problems as well as their mental psychiatric problems. So I was really curious and I wanted to know how to put these two things together. And then what happened is that I started to feel pain while I was massaging people. And I knew it wasn't me. I was crazy into sport, but I knew I hadn't done anything to injure my left foot, for example, when I was treating a lady who had pain in her right shoulder. So I asked this woman, can I have a look at your foot? And she was like, no, I have half an hour. I'm on my lunch break. I need fixing now. And I was like, yeah, but you know me. You know that I can help you. And if I don't help you, I'll give you your money back or we do another appointment. She said, oh, okay then. So I had a look at her foot and I manipulated her foot. And then I said to her, stand up and walk around. And she just looked at me, but she'd done it. And then I said, do this. And she'd done it. And she couldn't move her shoulder more than this. And suddenly she could raise and clap her hands. That was it. She was delighted. She just wanted to leave. But I persuaded her to stay for just 10 more minutes because I really wanted to check out that the shoulder was okay. And guess what? It was. So that led me to studying what I intuitively knew already. I could intuitively see people's pains in their bodies and where they were going wrong in their life. And I understood the psychology, but I didn't understand the science behind the energy. And I wanted to put these two together to really help people change in a quick, easy way. It is quick and it is easy, but to keep that change takes a bit more work. So let's get into this now. You see, I'm really enthusiastic about it because it really works, people. You know, my other part of my background is that I've been really interested in the big questions in life. Why are we here? What are we doing? What's the purpose? Why do some people suffer? Why do some people not? Why is there two people in the same circumstances, like a car crash? They both have the same physical impact on their body. And why does somebody get out the car and they've not even got a scratch on them? You know, they seem fine. You know, they're a little bit dazed, but they're fine. And they have no reoccurring problems. Everything's great. And the other person completely traumatized. They get out of the car and maybe they look the same, that there's not a scratch on them, but they're really dazed and they're almost unconscious and they're not really present. And then they just keep reliving the car crash all the time. And they have anxieties being in a car, and then they have anxieties leaving the house, and they're really suffering. But the other person sitting next to them in the car with the same impact, fine, nothing wrong with them. Now, what explains that? And what explains that is their unconscious mind. What explains that is their own perception of life, their own perception of them, their own perception of other people around them, and everything that's ever happened in their life. So their thoughts, their emotions, their history, their past, their education. I'm doing this because it's all the stuff that we store in our head, and all these act as filters that we have in our head. So all of these filters are made up throughout your whole life. They're the way your mind works. It's the way you perceive the world. When you see something, your mind doesn't register what you actually see, what's actually happening. What the mind registers is what you filter it to mean. So what you see is what you think it means. You don't see the reality. You see what you think. You see your own perception, and then you act upon your own perception. So let's go back to the example with a car crash. The person that's really hurt, the person that's really traumatized, they probably already have a higher level of anxiety. They probably already have pessimistic beliefs that things go wrong for them, that things don't work out, that they have bad luck. And they've probably had a high stress level in their life already. When they was a child, maybe their parents argued a lot, maybe they were poor. But they've gone about life believing that they can't really occupy their body. They can't really be with their emotions because they don't learn to trust their emotions, because life's been hard for them. So they believe in their intellect. This is what school taught them. This is probably what their parents taught them. This is definitely what society has taught them, to believe in their intellect, to believe in their mind. And this is what's important, not what they feel down here, not their feelings, not their emotions. And they've got so good at being identified with what's going on up here, they've literally cut themselves off and they don't feel anything down there. So maybe they saw the car crash going to happen and they tensed up and they freaked out and they left their body, and when the car crash happened, they were re-traumatized. They basically left their body and they stayed dissociated. Now this is science, this is not made up, people. You can look at what I'm talking about. And so they seem dazed and they seem not home, because they're not, because they're living out here. And then maybe at some point they come back into their head. But when they come back into their head, they just believe everything that everyone said to them. Wow, that was a really bad crash. You must be scared when you get back in a car. It must be hard to drive. This is actually a real life example that I've had through a client of mine. And what we had to do is we had to look at all of that and debunk it, which means, get rid of that programming. And so they start to see life from a different angle. We didn't really talk about the car crash because that's not where the problem was. The problem was in their childhood. And I don't go back and I'm not talking about it all the time because that's just re-traumatizing. That's how counselling and psychology works. And often in my experience, it's just re-traumatizing. Reliving the sad event, the bad event. We don't want to do that. But we want to look at it from a different perspective. And how do you reach that different perspective? You reach it through your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind works symbolically. It works metaphorically. But what's really quick is unconscious mind works with energy. So if we take the energy away from the circumstances that created the trauma, then you get to see it with a pure perception. There's no filters. If you cleared the energy, you're conscious, you're aware, you're with what is, and you get to see it clearly for the first time. And that's what's brilliant about energy work, is it gets you to see it for the first time. But what's really good about having a degree in psychology and understanding the workings of the mind is that you get the whole picture. We change the thought, we change the emotion, and we take away the energy, and so you can see clearly, and then we put you back together in a body where you're fully occupying it, where you're fully in touch with your emotions, with your heart, with your intuition. Because when you're in touch with your body, it gives you access to your real energy. And your real energy is very intuitive. It doesn't just live in your body, your real energy is everywhere. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. This video, this webinar, got inspired by a post by Garrett Kramer this morning. Now, Garrett Kramer is talking about the three principles, and he's talking about how the three principles are not non-duality. He's talking about how the three principles, how people have got lost in really believing they're a separate being. Now, read his posts, they're brilliant. But what I want to talk about, what I want to point out, is Sydney Banks. He's the man that came up with the three principles. Somebody said to him, Sydney, you're not insecure, it's just your thinking. And at that point, boom, his energy opened. You know, all the conditioning just fell through the floor, and he was able to see with pure insight that we're oneness. And then what happened was his teachings got diluted, that he himself changed his teachings because he really wanted people to see that they don't have to suffer. He really wanted them to see that they are oneness. Now, this is a big concept, and that's why, you know, his teachings somewhat got diluted. But in my opinion, his teachings were brilliant. Coming from psychology and coming from a background in non-duality, and, you know, still very interested in it because I'm not enlightened yet, guys. But hey, I know I can get there, and I've had glimpses which are amazing. His understanding of the mind was very simple. He spoke about filters. He spoke about your perception is not the reality of what you see. It was Sydney Banks' teachings that made this very clear to me, that made it very clear that when we understand the mind and how the mind really works, and we realise that our thinking is just made up, it's just something that we make up through our conditioning, through our learning, through our life experience, through these filters. When we know that what we see outside is not the actual reality of what's happening outside, it's just what we made up it to mean, then what it pointed to for me is, well, what else is there? Now I pause because I want you to ask yourself that question. If you know the three principles understanding or not, if you truly realise that you make up all your thinking, if you truly realise that often you're seeing life through your own perception, you're not seeing the reality. So a car crash can happen and you can think, oh great, I come out of that, I'm well, nothing's broken, well hey, let's get on with life. Or you can come out of the car crash, oh no, poor me, that's dreadful, that's it, I'm not going in a car again. What makes that difference? That's your thinking, you've made that up. When you truly see that, when you truly realise that, what's really going on? You're not a victim of what's happening outside of you anymore. You're truly inside of you. You're truly connected into your heart. And you ask yourself, so what's reality? So let me give you another example. This is a personal example. When I truly got, I just make up my thoughts, I became really interested in what's actually happening out there and what's happening inside of me that enables me to really connect with what is really happening out there. So let me give you a concrete example. I was having an argument with somebody one day. It was a very heated discussion. They were shouting at me. I could feel myself revving up and wanting to shout back. And, apparently I did say something quite sharp. But what I was more interested in was, hold on, what's happening? Why am I up here? Why am I feeling all of this? Why do I want to be sharp? Now, this is just my perception of what's happening. I've made all this stuff up. So let's relax, let's take a breath, let's get back into the body, let's ground, and let's be very present with this person. Let's be present in myself, and let's just open up, lean in and be curious to what's happening. And what happened then was quite amazing, because suddenly I was with the room. I was with everything in the room. The perception of me and mine and protecting myself and I have to argue and just fell away. And suddenly I was open. I was there. I could feel everything. And I knew there was no barriers. There was no separation. I knew in that moment we were oneness. And I could just relax. And it wasn't a moment, but it was incredibly curious, and I was incredibly interested in what was happening. And then everything, it took a little while, but everything just slowed down. And the person stopped arguing and stopped shouting. And we just came to rest with each other. And I'm glad to say that we're still friends, we're still very connected, because I was more interested in what was actually happening than what I was telling myself. And that's what I've understood from the Free Principles training, and that's what's beautiful to me. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And then when you bring energy work to it, then life is very technicolor. Then you can really feel and sense the oneness, because you can use the energy to change the unconscious mind, dump all the programming, and be very present with people, and be fully there, fully engaged, and feel the love, feel the truth of life. Now, I want to help you get rid of your suffering. And there's lots of free resources on my website. And what I pointed to in this video is you have a choice. You have a choice whether you want to be lost in your thinking and lost in your conditioning, or whether you want to truly embody, ground yourself, and know who you are and get in touch with yourself. So then you can be fully present in the moment with whatever there is and see the truth, see the reality. Because seeing the truth and seeing the reality empowers you to make choices and do what you want to do with your life. So that's how you overcome suffering. Now, if you sign up to my website, realenergyforall.com, you get the free grounding exercise, and you can do a lot with that. And you get free resources, and I talk about the free principles, I talk about understanding and everything else. And there's on my YouTube channel, there's free energy exercises. So I give you a lot of stuff for free for you to work with yourself. And if you want to work one-to-one with me, or you want to do group coaching, then I'm up for that as well. And I give free consultations. So get in touch with me and let's talk, because I really want you to clear your suffering and enjoy your life and create the life you love to live. I hope to talk to you soon. Lots of love. Take care.